All right, hey y'all, I'm Andrea from Andrea Speaks TV, back with more news and commentary you can use. Thank you again for supporting the channel. Listen, y'all, you know, on the channel we talk about food shortages. We talk about food shortages not only in the United States, but also across the world. Hold on, y'all. Y'all, this pollen, I'm telling you, I got to do a video to talk about how it seems like there's so much more pollen now, but I'll say that for another video. Listen, y'all. Have you heard about the food crisis that's going on right now in North Korea? Now, you all know here on the channel, whenever I do report world news, it's not to scare you. I know you may say, Andrea, you're talking about something in North Korea. I mean, I'm in the United States or some other country. I'm not trying to scare you, but I always say the purpose of me reporting on world news is to get you to understand that, hey, if it's happening there, who's to say it can happen here in the United States? I want to talk about what's happening in North Korea and their food crisis. The leader of North Korea, okay, has ordered agricultural improvements amid reports from outside the country of a worsening food crisis. Listen to this, y'all, okay? I need you to pay attention. I need you to pay attention, all right? Watch this video in its entirety. South Korea, okay, has said that its neighbor seems to be dealing with, and I quote, a grave food situation. Think about how severe that is, y'all. While the Washington, D.C. based think tank 38 North, which is part of the Stimson Center, has said the country is on the brink of famine. We're talking about North Korea, y'all. Okay, listen. You may be wondering, well, Andrea, what's happening in North Korea? North Korea has long suffered from food insecurity, with a devastating famine in the 1990s estimated to have caused the loss of life somewhere between 240,000 and 3.5 million people. That's a lot of people, y'all. Analysts have blamed extreme weather and border closures during the pandemic for the deterioration in the food situation, which was already fragile from decades of economic stagnation due to centralized planning, the diversion of resources to weapons development, and international sanctions. Okay, again, y'all, I'm talking about the food crisis in North Korea. Here's a quote from a report from 38 North. Okay, you may want to research that. I'm going to research that as well. 38 North said this in January, and I quote, food availability has likely fallen below the bare minimum with regard to human needs. Okay, we're talking about North Korea, y'all. North Korea's economy shrank by an estimated 0.1% in 2021, the second straight year of decline. Okay, that's according to South Korea's central bank. What is the status of the agricultural system? North Korea's leader has urged officials to meet agricultural production targets, declaring, and I quote, nothing is impossible under the leadership of the ruling Workers' Party. Okay. The North Korean leader has also called for infrastructure improvements to increase food production, according to the state media. Now, North Korea relies on a collective agricultural system that has been in place since the 1950s. Here's a quote from Stimson Center fellow and journalist Martin Williams, who told Al Jazeera, and I quote, its agricultural system relies on farmers producing as much food as they can. Okay. Most of the food goes into a central distribution system, and I quote, and in the past that provided North Koreans with an adequate supply of basic nutrition, but over the last sort of 10 years or more it started to fall apart. Listen to what happened, y'all, and it's at level now where most North Koreans can't survive on what, if anything, they get from the state. Okay, according to Williams, most of the collected food is delivered to, and I quote, the capital cities where the elite live. Okay, look at this, y'all. They're providing food first to where the elite live, and also to army units and the military. Okay, but what about just the regular common folk people, right? South Korea's Ministry of Unification has said there have been reports of people losing their lives from starvation, while the Rural Development Agency reported that the country's crop production fell by nearly 4% in 2022, citing heavy summer rains and economic conditions. You know, I wonder now, it could be out there, I just may not have read it. But I wonder, does our United States, does our Department of Agriculture, or is there some data where we can know how much our crop production has fallen? I'll be curious to know where we are now as of last year, and especially today, right? North Korea's natural environment is also challenging for agriculture. about 5.4 million acres, it says, is suitable for farming. That's approximately. The country also lacks adequate infrastructure, machinery, and supplies, including fertilizers and fuels. Okay, remember I did a video last year, maybe even the year before that, and I talked about how there was a growing concern about fertilizer shortages. Got to have, you know, fertilizer helps provide so many nutrients, for example, like nitrogen, and there are many others to help, you know, produce the crops, right? Helps them grow and then harvest. Here's another quote. North Korea's agriculture is still stuck in the technology of several decades ago. A lot of rice planting and harvesting is done by hand. Okay, these conditions, the article says, led to inefficiencies in farming. And Williams explained, and I quote, so crops can be built below where they could be, and North Korea every year has problems feeding its population, but this year it looks like it's maybe particularly bad. Okay. Despite the reported difficulties, North Korea has rejected suggestions of accepting outside assistance, with the official Rodong Sinmun newspaper last week calling for greater economic self-reliance. Listen to what they're saying, y'all. The newspaper in the country is calling for greater economic self-reliance and comparing foreign aid to, listen to this, y'all, poison candy. Did y'all hear that? Listen, y'all. Despite, I'm gonna read this again. I hope you're still watching the video, okay? Comment on this exact part if you're still watching the video. That's how I know you kept watching. Despite the reported difficulties, okay? Despite everything that this country is allegedly going to that we're reading in the media, right? North Korea is rejecting suggestions of accepting outside assistance. Listen to this, y'all. Think about where we are now as a country and what could possibly happen in the future. Relying on the government to feed you. Listen to this, y'all. I'm reading this again. Let me know if you're still watching this point of the video, okay? Despite the reported, I think this is something definitely that we could take away from this, right? Listen, y'all. Despite the reported difficulties, everything that they're going through, the challenges, the struggles, right? North Korea has rejected suggestions of accepting outside assistance, with the official Rodong Sinmun newspaper last week, the newspaper of that country, right, calling for greater economic self-reliance. Didn't I talk about self-reliance, y'all? How everything going on is showing, it should be showing us and teaching us to be as self-reliant, self-sufficient as possible. Despite the reported, I'm reading this again. This is very important. Despite the reported difficulties, North Korea has rejected suggestions of accepting outside assistance, with the official Rodong Sinmun newspaper last week calling for greater economic self-reliance and comparing foreign aid to, and I quote, poison candy. That went over some of y'all head. Rather than accept what they're calling poison candy, right, in quotation marks, they're going to reject outside assistance, and they're calling for greater economic self-reliance. Think about how many things that can apply to, y'all. Now, I don't want to scare anybody, right? I don't want to scare anybody. But this particular country, I don't know their values, how their country operates. I don't know all the specifics, right? Their beliefs, how much control they have over the people. But it is their belief, okay, according to the information I'm reading, this is from Al Jazeera. It is their belief that they would rather continue to struggle, reject outside assistance, instead of accepting foreign aid, which they compare to as poison candy. Okay, yeah, we'll help you if you accept this. Yeah, here you go. But then could it possibly make them sick? Think about this, y'all. What do they eat? Okay, what a North Korean gets to eat largely depends on where they live. It says there's a big gap between the countryside and the cities. People there might be eating 2 or maybe 3 meals a day. The traditional dishes are very similar to South Korea, but of course in North Korea it's much more difficult to get meat and fresh fruits and things like that. Okay, their diet is mainly based on rice and vegetables, it says. Okay, y'all. The article also says it's a very uneven society. This is a quote, and it's very difficult for us to get a very accurate take on quite how many people are surviving, okay? Let's see. Okay, there was also a question. Is North Korea to focus on its military objectives? Let's see. The U.S. estimates that the country spends nearly 1/4 of its gross domestic product, or GDP, on its military. Let's see. And it just goes on to talk about that, y'all. But basically, I just wanted to bring your attention to and let you know that North Korea now, they're saying that it's a food crisis. You can do your research on this topic. What are your thoughts? Please let me know. Again, y'all, I'm going to end with this quote, and I think it's very significant. Think about this, y'all. Despite the reported difficulties, North Korea has rejected suggestions of accepting outside assistance, with the official newspaper last week calling for greater economic self-reliance and comparing foreign aid to, and I quote, poison candy. It seems like, just based on what I just read, the people would rather continue to struggle, try to fix it themselves, become self-reliant, than to depend on and rely on foreign assistance, which in their eyes, they compare it to poison candy. That says a lot, y'all. That says a lot about how things are going now and where we're possibly headed, okay? Think about how many different areas that could apply to here in America, okay? You know, all signs, based on my research, I've said this before, all signs point to the fact that, you know, even more troubling times concerning food shortages are coming. What if the United States says, hey, you know what, we're going to fly in food from this country and that country to help? Didn't they do that with some other type of food? You all remember what I was reporting on? Operation Fly Formula, flying in all this baby formula. How is it that North Korea is saying, hey, we're going to try to build ourselves up to being self-reliant rather than accepting poison candy from outside, you know, outside foreign aid? That's how they look at it. Should we be looking at that as well? Now, we don't have any control over our government saying, hey, we're going to fly in fruits and vegetables and from all these different places. And I do know that food gets, you know, imported in, but I'm just saying in extreme cases where we're just having food shortages everywhere, let's fly in food from here and there, okay? From my understanding, there are still, even with imported food, there are still checks and systems in place. But what if we get to the point where we're becoming totally dependent on other countries to feed us? I don't know, that seemed like a dangerous and concerning thing, y'all. Let me know your thoughts. As always, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Stay tuned for more news and commentary you can use right here on Andrea Speaks TV.